Sean, what you got for us?
Good evening, Edgerenka. Good evening, viewers. This evening we are taking a look at remarks made by the Complaints Commissioner, Elton Georges. He's saying, Edgerenka, that there is some improvement in terms of how we are managing complaints today. He is applauding the government for giving more attention to the handling of complaints, and he's of the view that the office of the Complaints Commissioner is having an overall beneficial impact on the territory in terms of helping to improve the quality of service offered from governments, departments and agencies. He says, though, that it may take another 10 to 15 years before we can see any real change in terms of improving the standard of service that we offer here, not only from government agencies and departments, but generally speaking.
Well, I want to commend the Complaints Commissioner and the Complaints Commission. I think they've done an excellent job in taking complaints and getting results. It was something that was long overdue, and I certainly was happy to see that such an office was instituted and persons who had grievances with various departments and government finally had some redress. One of the things, though, the Complaints Commissioner talk about what I would say, for a matter of speaking, teeth, you know, its ability to enforce action or create action. Did he have anything to say about that? Because people have been calling the Complaints Commission toothless tiger. What did he have to say about that?
And that's relative, because he spoke to that in many ways. For example, he said there is the issue of the respective departments taking the decisions and the suggestions offered by the commission to make the necessary changes. There is also the issue of following up on the respective complaints. But he drew attention to the absence of a tribunal, a labor tribunal, a disputes tribunal at the Labor Department, and he alluded to the statement made by Deputy Premier Dr. Kedrick Pickering in relation to that matter. Of course, we know that is delayed somewhat, although we were told by the Deputy Premier that it is coming on stream. So basically, there is that distance that the Complaints Commission can go. However, there are other agencies, such as the tribunal, that are needed to help to put the teeth, more or less, and into these issues and to ensure that we actually see results.
Well, one of the things I've noticed, the Complaints Commissioner bringing a lot to light regarding the performance of the various departments and the challenges that customers are having or users are having with these various departments, and that in itself tend to shed some, put a spotlight, so to speak, on some of these departments and create a sense of embarrassment for people who are not really doing what they're supposed to be doing. So that in itself is having impact.
Yes.
Did he talk about ways outside of his ability to enforce any decision that he could sort of influence the investigation process and the delivery of his service process to the public?
Well, sure, because he's calling on people to be not afraid to complain. He's saying you should demand quality service. You deserve a very high standard of service from the respective government departments and agencies and so forth. And people should lodge their complaints, justifiably so, of course. He's saying as well that there is that gap between the complaints and following up, because even at the Complaints Commission's office, there is not a lawyer on staff, and he's calling for a lawyer to be added to the staff to help to really support what's being done there, because let's face it, there's so much that small staff can do. But in terms of reaching out into these departments and helping them to improve their standard of service, because you can look at it that way by, of course, looking into the complaints issues and putting the pressure on. He's saying that offices such as the Governor's Office, the Premier's Office, the BVI Health Services Authority, the BVI Electricity Services, they have all come under the hammer of the Complaints Commission. And with that, apart from, of course, the disputes tribunal coming on stream later down the road, government has introduced an agency, an office within the civil service to handle complaints, and there is now an inspector of police at the Royal Virgin Islands Police level to deal specifically with complaints. So generally speaking, you're really seeing some changes across the board, gradual changes, as the Complaints Commissioner describes it.
Another thing is the fear factor. You know, most of the persons with complaints appear to be migrant workers. You know, they have challenges with labor, with employers, and so on. And of course, by virtue of the fact that they're here on work permits, they could be deported at any time if their work permit is expired and or not renewed. In having to work and having to support themselves and possibly their families, there's a high degree of fear in their minds regarding making a complaints about employers who may happen to be Virgin Islanders.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that, because the Complaints Commissioner did say that a number of private complaints, private sector-based complaints do come to the office, and he has had to direct them to the more appropriate authorities. In fact, what he's saying, and that this is a fact, the Complaints Commission only deals directly with complaints coming from or in relation to government-based departments and agencies. So the private sector is another thing by itself, and that's where, of course, the Disputes Tribunal and the Labor Department will have to come in to address those issues that are, of course, labor issues not related to the government side in terms of government service.
But in many instances, I'm talking about persons migrant workers who have to deal with government agencies.
Right, that's right, that's right.
And not getting the service that they need, in a lot of cases being abused by employers and not having redress.
Yes.
And certainly, and afraid to seek redress by virtue of the fact that they depend on a work permit and employment in the territory.
Precisely, and so that's a strong point.
Yeah, then and I'm wondering, you know, if he recognizes that challenge and is looking to be able to help that situation, to encourage those migrant workers with those challenges to come forward and feel encouraged to speak out.
I think he didn't segment or look in any specific way at the various demographics. He really looked across the board in terms of asking people to come forward with their complaints. One would take into consideration the fact that, as you point out, there may be some fears in some sectors of the society about really lodging their complaints. And I get the sense that, as the Complaints Commissioner is saying, there's a greater understanding and appreciation for justifiable complaints. So one shouldn't be afraid anymore to go forward with your complaint, especially when it has to do with issues stemming from customer service. You know, because at the end of the day, the goal is to improve customer service in the territory. It's a financial services jurisdiction, a tourism jurisdiction. It's a very vibrant tourism sector that we have here in the BVI, and we want to ensure that all sectors of the economy understand that, and customer service is a common thread running throughout.
Well, certainly we're glad to have the Complaints Commission, and I know personally I've had some occasions to deal with the Complaints Commission in helping persons to get redress, and I know for a fact that it's doing a good job, and a lot of people are benefiting from the fact that we have a Complaints Commission. So it's a good thing, and I'm certainly looking forward to improvements in its ability to investigate and to bring satisfaction to those persons who feel aggrieved. So we're gonna see what's happening coming up in the news in a week.
Some more specifics, and you're gonna hear him speak to the issues.
Yes, we're gonna take a break for a word from our sponsors.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Clarence Thomas Limited, the BVI Tourist Board, and CCT Global Communications.